back the talk which I prepared and I submitted some time ago, and as a coincidence, let's just show you something if I find it again. Where is it? That's how it starts. There was something happening yesterday, and this was the thing. Go over there. You see just the lower part. Yesterday, and you find it in the news at many places, there was an announcement that the automotive industry in Germany signed a memorandum of understanding for joint software development based on open source. And actually, a core of this is what I'm presenting now. It's the Safe Open Vehicle Core. There will be much more about it. And if you want to read the news and you search for it in the net, one warning. I don't know how they made it up, but there is an article which says German industry tried to attack Google and Apple by this, which is totally rubbish. They made it up. I don't know how. The principle is just like to get faster, to have more collaboration, and nobody is questioning that the automotive industry will continue to work with Google because that's how the infotainment systems are created, and we will always have Apple CarPlay and other things in. So that's not the thing. The funny, or not the funny, the interesting part, if you scroll down in this announcement, where's my mouse there? You find a lot of quotes also. So we have the BMW group being in there, Continental, the Eclipse Foundation as hosting a lot of the initiatives. Then you see my upper boss, the CEO of Etas. Thanks, Thomas, for having me sent here. Then we have also Markus Oesberg from Mercedes-Benz, and also the boss of my boss, Mr. Pellin. So Valeo, Vector, so you see also a lot of competitor Quarix, and these are the ones signing this initiative, and I'm pretty sure there's room for more to join on this, so it shouldn't be just German, it was just on German conference. So then back to where we're actually coming from. So who am I? Very short. I'm Senior OSS Community Manager. I'm also the automotive open source process lead within Etas, which basically means bringing open source automotive processes together, which fits very much to what we have here. I'm the chair of the ELISA Technical Steering Committee, and I'm also leading the systems work group there, started recently an initiative together with Gap and others on an open source best practices standard. I still have some stash wallets to share later on if someone has interest. Maybe if you ask a question, you get a stash wallet. I don't know. Let's see. I'm an inaugural board member of the Linux Foundation Advisory Board in Linux Foundation Europe. And yeah, I have a strong passion for OSS. So on the agenda, short motivation. It's a very crowded slide. I may jump over one or two things because I find it much better to read it later on. Give you an overview on ASCore. Some part of the slides are repetitive, but that makes it stick to your brain. And tell you a bit of the process model which we have. It's a lot about the environment in which we operate, which is a little bit different for some parts compared to a normal open source project or regular ones. We'll get to how to contribute and have some question and answers. Right. First of all, the motivational thing. Very simplified speaking, it's about a shift-left approach. So what we see in the past, we have open source components already being used. Then it goes to certain software vendors which enhance these kind of things, and they provide it to the manufacturer, tier 1, OEM, and there the whole trick starts. Everybody comes with an own tool chain. Everybody works on certification. Everybody adds test cases, adds documentation, specs, whatever is needed to enhance the open source software. And that's quite stupid because it's all the same base. That's why they came up and said, oh, let's just see like how do we can just lower the effort by shifting left a lot of things. So now it's the idea that you already have, or you have still open source project, but you bring the safe open vehicle core. The safe open vehicle core is a collaboration environment where basically anyone can contribute who has signed this Eclipse something contributor license agreement, whatever it is. And then in this area we can already enhance by tools, and we can also add like a reference system, bases, pre-integration parts, and bring this then to the distributor. The role of a distributor, this may sound a bit strange here, it may be essential because it's super hard to get liability claims on the open source project as such. And by this, the distributor will take the things, and add additional evidence, something which may not be able to be put in open source, for example, put it on real hardware beyond the reference hardware, because you will never align these days on an example hardware which can be used by every OEM. It also needs to be tailored fit to the infrastructure architecture. So this would be the role of the distributor, and then it would be handed over to the OEM, and they do their application development on top. The nice thing about it is that you will always be able to use the same tool chain, the same sets. You will have tool qualification done already, so you don't need to qualify your tools again. And that's all the approach in here. So by this, we really try to get in this software platform ecosystem with the middleware stacks. We focus a lot, first of all, on this collaboration part, and we'll spend a significant amount of time on processes. We also go into the, go along with certification authorities. We have Exceeder as a partner who is assessing our processes, so they will assess also the software we develop. But one pre-announcement here, I will say it again later, there's not a certification as such which will be issued. It will just be all the artifacts provided, and the distributor will then certify based on their understanding and liability. What I see more and more important, and this was something pending in the past, it's the developer environment. So if you go into the core repo of the initiative, you will find the instruction how to set up your dev container. You can run it then on Linux or on Windows or whatever you like. Pre-information, it's sometimes a little bit hard to go through corporate proxy, VPN, whatever, firewall thingies. It's something we are not finalized that, so we always find new company issues where some firewall port blocks whatever part on it. Yeah, and we have the tooling around it. The idea is to get much faster, to be more resilient, increase the quality. One of the safety guys from the assessment agencies, they made a very good statement, and they said, what better thing you can give as an argument for safety, quality, and so when two competing companies try to find the best solution on something, because they will make sure that they have the proper thing technology-wise. And yeah, it's for OEM benefit, they have a stronger reuse. For tier ones as well, they can make reuse of it and resell it. It's actually what tier ones also have done in the past, but it became more and more complicated because there was more custom-tailored solution for OEMs, and later on OEMs came up and say, what we don't want to have this custom-tailored solution, actually we want to have more freedom. So it's a break in there, but that's changing. And then there could be additional servers and software suppliers to help. Also, for example, getting contracts to implement functionality in this framework. So what is this whole thing? So from the status currently, it's up and running. It has significant contributions. So we started very low in December 24. Actually, it was an incubation project with a small set, so we made a little bit of trial to see does it work, how is the build tooling that we didn't came up with nothing. We came up with a fundamental working part, and then increase the number of lines of code. And so if you take pictures from the slides, I already uploaded them to scat.com, so if you want to relax, you don't need to take the pictures. They are all identical, I guess. So that's already there. What you can see, there's also release overview. We have a 0.5 release. The 0.1 happened. The 0.1 was basically nothing. It was just showing the infrastructure. You can build things. We're hardening now for 0.5, which points toward the end of the year. We have the GitHub infrastructure, very low risk or chance that we move over to GitLab, which is not clear, most likely where we will stick there. It was basically that project management thought that they have more project control if they get it on GitLab, because the GitLab issue ticketing and creating like roadmaps and so on is easier in GitLab than in GitHub. I doubt that it will happen. Then we have a complete open source tooling, so there's the S core itself has a completely open tooling. We base on QNX currently as a foundation for the operating system. Linux is in preparation. So the QNX license is something you don't have, but we were able to build things there. That's maybe the little bit of downside which you may see if you think about fully open source. But also the QNX part is not part of the base system, so it's not mandatory and it's abstracting. So the base requirements are to be on a POSIX system. Yeah, we will have a relaunch of our website. The website was not very professional. It was made by engineers, for engineers, and it looks like out of the 80s. So then there came like PR people and said, we can do this better. Let's wait for what they made out of it. We conducted town hall meetings to just pick up people, where there were like 100 participants there. We went to conferences like the Automotive Open Source Summit. We had a workshop at Volvo in Lund to discuss about these kind of things. And so it's a lot of ways where we are doing outreach. I have also the upcoming events at the end. Milestone perspective, we're somewhere in the middle there, but in the beginning of the initial phase. In this phase, we prepare for the score 0.5. 0.5 means essential parts for an Etas application, but not everything. I have a roadmap picture coming up. And yeah, we start with a process and tools for it that everybody can develop accordingly. Then there's coming the implementation, and the release is planned towards the end of the year. If it will be January later on, I don't know. It depends how fast everything goes. You never know what happens when you need licenses, set up infrastructures, and so on. Then we iterate over the time, and somewhere, maybe end of 26, we come up with a 1.0 release. So also, you see the link at the bottom. If you click on it, you end up at the recent roadmap. It's checked, I guess, every week, every other week. So that's really like changing. But it's not always the case that every developer closed a ticket, and sometimes the feature is done, but the milestone was not closed. So we can see it in the sub-issues, but it's all transparent. I mentioned this QNX part already. There was a press release, and it was going through the social media, and it was like, oh, surprise, foundation, whatever happened. And actually, it was in the meeting minutes of the committees since a month or two that this release will come, so you could even see it up front. So basically, like, all information I know is publicly available. So you can really find out what the project, what the committee is doing, and where things go. And therefore, you can also follow always up, like, where are we in the 0.5 process and what will be in. Concretely speaking, for 0.5, these are the architectural blocks. Those familiar with an AUTOSAR adaptive may find one or the other word, which is quite similar. It's not a competition or a re-implementation of the adaptive stack, but it's still that you need a lot of these functionality. So the building blocks, the functional classes of adaptive were not selected by no reason. There was a good reason why they wanted to have them. And this is then that there's coming new things, but they evaluate on different solutions on what has been developed. And you can see like these yellow parts, that's what's coming in on the left side. We have the infrastructure and tooling parts, but all the things which are already available, like compiling things and so on. The top left is the fixed execution order part. So this is there to run and schedule certain workloads for your Etas application. And then it's about logging other parts, interprocessor communication, which need to come. Green parts are already there. Gray parts are unclear. And green parts means just it's decided to get into the 1.0. But there's still elements in there which you can contribute, where you can make proposals. How this works, we see here the first three components, which are already active and where you find things in the repos, are the fixed execution order, FEO, interprocess communication logging. We made a choice of different approaches. So there were the different members or participants, contributors, making a proposal on what they see as a good component. Then there was an architectural workshop, and the people decided on what to do and what to take. And this you can see here as a selection. And then everything, I took the IPC example. At the top right there, the link for it. They come up with a feature request, which basically describes everything you want to get in, what you see as requirements, like a stakeholder level. They say that this is the idea of it. Then you create the architecture, you write requirements. It can be pre-existing software, but still you need to provide these artifacts like architectural drawing requirements and so on, because it's very much tied to automotive industry, still in the open. From the contribution activity, I hesitated to take the new snapshot. This one was the one end of May. And I took it because I got this red little piece of there, and it looks like I'm a very good contributor to it. So that was my personal thought why I take this picture. I'm far more down to the right because I bring in the process, and currently a lot of implementation gets in. And you see that the components by BMW came in, and Quarix provided also first parts. So you can see all these coming. And if you click then on this link, which I have, you will see this. But what I wanted to tell is that we already have now, like, you see it in the right, there's page 1 of 2, so we have a bunch of contributions, a lot of participants, and it's really gaining traction there. And this is all tied to the process model. And this was where we worked most on. So the process model, here we see the working model again. That's what you saw in the beginning, right? The shift-left approach. You have this here again, so we look what is the responsibility of the committer, the distributor, the tiers, how we handle open source, and put this in a process. The picture turned out to be a little bit boring because until last or 2 weeks ago there were at least white spots. We now reached our first maturity level. That has mean we are prototyping and we're running the first components against the written process. The process are those where Quarix, Accenture, BMW, Mercedes, Etas BOSCH aligned on and said, yes, that's how we live process, that's how things can look like, and that's how we can proceed with the components. By the end of the year, I hope I'm right, we plan to go to the purple level 2 so that it's really living and that you can see that it's managed and applied and operated properly. And this is like that the FUSA audit, so we make audits on the process that this is, all findings are closed and we are operational. This is for ISO 26262. We also go for ISO 21434 for cybersecurity and ASPICE, and we have a tracing from all our working models to the standards. We went into the standards authorities, asked them what kind of information we are able to share. So when you have a standard, you can see, okay, here is the section of the standard, and then you can reply to it and understand this work product will fulfill this requirement. Very important for a certification later on. All right, the software development as such. Well, here you have the 3 standards, by the way. As a question will come, we're targeting ASIL B so far. Why not ASIL D? Well, we start with ASIL B. For example, we have written down test methodologies and test types, but we are said not every test type is needed for the beginning. If we would develop for ASIL D from the beginning, it slows us down, but we have it all within mind that it will come up at some point in time. We have feature, which is blue level. Well, feature is not blue level, platform level. Feature level is yellow. It combines different components, and we have a component unit area. We have requirements for everything, architectural things, depending on complexity. Link this. It's all based on docs as code approach. So we really put everything into text files in the repository. We have checks, a lot of checks, a lot of checks on everything. So we're sometimes not even able to just get the things in because we forgot that there was another check. And this is based on Sphinx-Needs mainly and Sphinx. So if you come for the tooling side, you have PlantUML for drawing some of the things because we can track better in this, but it's raw representation. The order is actually not right? So it's just PlantUML at the top. It's not the right order of tools. We use Sphinx-Needs in there. We have Google Test for testing. We have an integration test framework, which will be open sourced, coming from BMW. It integrates with Bazel as our build tooling, and we support C++ and Rust. Don't ask me for the C++ version. I've just forgot it. From the auditing, we are now at like close to the July. We have our last for this level 1 audit on Friday actually, and then we continue with coming to the managed part somewhere 10, let it be 11, I don't know, and then we have a practice execution with the release 0.5. And well, maybe it was not the best idea to talk so much about processes, but I think you're super excited now to contribute. So therefore, how to contribute and collaborate. Here you see again the stack picture, and why I brought it in, again, there's the link in the bottom for the project as such, so you can see which features are planned. Every feature block here gets a ticket, and you can filter for those as a feature request, and you see the different colors. So you see like green is like confirmed, the red ones I think are in progress, the resolution is so low I cannot read it from here. Then you see the gray ones which are draft. This means it's just the ticket, because there should be something. So if you saying, like, wow, that's my component, that's where I want to work on, that's where I can offer implementation, jump on it, refine the feature request, then it gets in for draft, gets an assignee, and moves on. And just because there's an assignee, it doesn't mean that it's actually someone. It's most likely the person who has written the draft. Then the fun or not fun part will start. So we will fill this on the way. That's no kind of problem because basically all the components are there. But we have this like super automotive-centric setup of how people can work with each other because we still have, we took the names from the Eclipse Foundation, so don't mix up the name and make up something what it could mean. The technical lead circle currently mainly consists of project managers, while the project lead circles basically the board. So these are the sponsors of the activity. They decide directions, check about potential money getting involved or so on, certain strategy parts. The technical leads make sure that we have the roadmap compliant and that we reach our goal of 0.5, setting priorities. And then we have the different communities. So I'm mainly involved in the testing community and the development process community. And then there are also feature teams, the green ones. These feature teams are cross-functional teams, which means typically in every feature, so I'm participating a bit in the logging part. So I'm there from a process side. And then there's typically also someone from testing, from the architecture team, so that you find like a metric thing and a cross-exchange, because otherwise one community or one feature would develop something different than the other community, even if there is a defined process. There's sometimes uncertainty, and as we're in a fresh phase, people pick it up. Right, they have also marketing and communication. They they make beautiful slides and good web pages and make sure that we get an abstraction, so it's also super helpful. They're a little bit beside, and here, and how to contribute exactly. So there's the link again, how to contribute. And it describes what, if you have a new idea, how to add a feature, if you have something for coding, like how to pick up tickets, how to follow coding guidelines, and so on. That's a web page. You may want to get in touch with real people. And by the preparation of the slides, if we go to the right, I figured out, well, there's actually not something like a full visible meeting schedule. It's because of the mixture of how to set up things, how to get up in the Eclipse Foundation meeting calendar, having like a Zoom account thing, and so that's like the logistics of Eclipse. So we are enhancing this bit by bit. But when you just go to the channel of SCORE, and you say like, I'm interested in something, so you go on Slack channel, then you can simply just drop a question and the people point you. So if you say, oh, I'm infrastructure guy, they will just, and I look into for the infrastructure meeting, they send you directly the invitation. I made the trial. I don't know how it's now because it's already 10:30 and it's a lot of German people in there. But in the preps, I just like, do we have a public calendar somewhere? And I just got like, no, we don't have the public calendar, but here's the overview for our infrastructure team. And oh, well, here's the overview for the process people. Oh, if you want to join, I can add you to the meeting. So that's open. To just get first contacts. And if you want to see what's happening, on GitHub there we use discussions, and there are minutes of every meeting. So every meeting which takes place gets minutes. Some minutes may be hidden in a ticket, so if we are discussing on a concrete pull request or on a concrete feature, module, whatever, we may sometimes document the results of the meeting directly in the ticket rather than in a general discussion. That's the exceptional part. Yeah, that's on this. And then we have the get in touch part. We are here now at Open Source Summit in North America. There is the VDA SYS coming up in Berlin, basically in parallel. I removed the VDA thing, and the Automotive Electronics Congress, where the announcement was, because I didn't have enough space. We will be in the Open Source Summit Europe, the LF, which is a German thingy as well. And there's also the Automotive Symposium from Exida, which is like collecting the safety community. That's the few which I was aware of. Right, and I know that typically when I come to this point, I gave this presentation also, there were many, many questions. So therefore I shortened the presentation a little bit. And I leave the room for questions. Yeah, the microphone is coming. Oh, not yet on. Oh, Just try another time. Another time?
Test, okay.
You know how it works.
Actually, now I have two questions. One question is on the educational side, can we take, model automotive, robotic car kind of things and leverage any of this standardization that's going on for industry? That's one question. And my second question is, if you could remake the roads, the infrastructure, the things that cars drive on, how would you instrument the roads to make it easier for automation and driving and so forth?
You mean the actual infrastructure on the road?
Actual road, like
car-to-car communication and so on?
Not just car-to-car, but like
car-to-X.
Physically what's on the road.
Yeah.
Stripes, reflectors, dots, like how would you instrument the roads, the stuff that stays there all the time for the cars to do better? And then how do we use this in education robotics cars?
What do you need to define what the education robotics cars are? So what is
four wheels, like a regular car,
like
but four wheels and a controller.
Right. It's actually not the core part of the project, as it mainly concentrates on the high performance compute within the car to have like a stack, and you really feel that we're touching this only slightly. We try to be application independent wherever possible. We try to be operating system independent wherever possible. So we really narrow it down to functions, to a library set, to a toolbox which you use. And I think if it comes down to like how you do this educational part, what we do is for education from the university side and so on, it was the consideration that it should be easier to contribute to these kind of initiatives, but it's due to the fact that it's currently a lot of major OEM and tier ones, it's very hard to bring this in for individuals, that they find the place, how do I contribute, how do I bring it in? If I'm like in a university, there's like we have Formula Student, which is like racing cars, or partially autonomous things in there. That's where we currently make up our mind how we better integrate those, because it's made by, you see the distributor model, and it's centralized a lot of these things on the distributor part. On the infrastructure as such, like communicating with the outside, we will come to more like the IPC, the interprocessor or interprocess communication, that handles a little bit on the ECU in the car, but it's meant to reach further so that you can communicate with other systems outside. So the protocol and the base, the stack allows it. I did the very personal thing, so it has nothing to do with any of the members there or so, because it's just what I learned from the past. It was super complicated to get in these kind of things, and it's a worldwide issue. If you would create autonomous vehicles, and it's leaving the direct part of this talk, but if you think of autonomous vehicle, it would be much easier to put cameras on the streets to add significant things like signs and so on, which would just guide, and you can reduce the infrastructure cost heavily. But from the past experience, it's what someone told me I met, is that a lot of the industry was against it. I don't know if it's worse to have another try, but there was a lot of car makers which also wanted to get more, at least in the European area, which wanted to keep their car, all the things together. But this was in a time where there was not this collaboration, so maybe it's coming now. But like 5-10 years back, the trials to come to a guided highways and so on, where you just jump on and then the highway takes over the car and basically orchestrates all the cars there. This was not successful in the research project which have been executed, because it was too hard to align among automotive OEMs.
Yeah, so what I found most successful are the most successful educational robot I found just looks down from the middle of the car, looks down and reads something from the road, essentially, to know where it is and to get an indication of what to do based on that. You don't have to know about what's around you, you just read from the road. So I was just wondering if you did that.
Yeah, at least you can even narrow it down to other parts. If you go for trucks, there was the idea to have at the back of every truck, make signs, even some invisible parts, where cameras can follow, so that you can have convoys where cars can get in between. But it's super complicated to align on this and also to find the foundational base. Maybe it's coming, yeah. There's a question in the back as well.
So I saw that you had support for Rust toolchain. Are you guys using the Ferrocene toolchain? And what kind of adoption are you seeing from automakers for Rust stuff?
So yeah, we have Rust enabled, and we're actually also talking to Florian. So he's involved. He's part of it. We were talking about the S core, so Safe Open Vehicle core, also during last community day from the Eclipse SDV part where Florian was in there. I don't know. It could be good that we use Ferrocene compiler. Currently, it's more like or we're not yet there. I mean, that's the part. But we also talk together with him to have the right coding guidelines around, and because the Rust compiler does already a lot of things, but it's not really taking, it hands over a lot of responsibility, but it's again hard to explain the other people why this is fulfilling all the coding requirements which they know from the past, like C, Misra, C things, and so you don't need it anymore with Rust, but you need to also convince the others and explain and write this down. So that's something which is going on. So if you look in the repos, I think the FEO is Rust-based already. So there are Rust components. Another question which often came up like 2 or 3 times already, if we will implement everything in Rust and C++. And no, we will get contributions in if there is an existing C++ component. It will be C++ in the beginning. And if someone else comes and re-implements and make it compatible with Rust and that it fits, we may take it over, but we will not do parallel development because we don't have the capacity to do all in parallel. And we don't have yet the commitment from everybody to just work in Rust because we have experienced C++ developers which not become serious, proper and fully developed Rust developers in no time.
Thank you.
Further question?
Thank you for your talk. I'm not so much, I don't know so much about S-core so far, and my question is like, if my understanding is correct, S-core is now focusing on something like, FUSA functionalities and not so much on about, infotainment systems like GUI or multimedia or such kind of things. And my question is, how can we integrate those two systems?
So from this perspective, it's a question first. We need to see, do you need these parts, right? Do you want to make use of it? Because you say, well, in my infotainment system or other, I want to make use of similar things, like I want to use the logging, health management, and so on. If you want to do so, you can start using the things because we will have, currently, as I said, we start with QNX, the Linux part is on the road, and for our side at Etas, we also, like for our adaptive stack, we're not talking about adaptive here, just like to show you. We tried and some experience to just bring it on different Linux distribution. It was quite easy, and the stack which is created here also will provide a lot of tools. So the thing is, you will need to most likely take the Bazel build tooling in there. I don't know if you really can tailor it out, maybe over time, but now it's really focused on this. But then you can tailor it and make your configuration, say I want like these and these components, and you bring it in. If it really adds like what you want for your functionality, that's the questionable thing. The nice thing maybe in this case, you can directly hook on this open source part, and you can decide if you want to, you don't need the safety certification, so you may come and go to your distributor, or you do it on your own, or you start with a distributor and take it over on your own later on. So you have the freedom to do so. And the documentation will be there, the testing will be there, everything is there for you laid down, and you can decide, do you have a supplier? Are you the supplier? Are you the provider? How do you evolve this? Yeah, it depends on your role.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
I don't know where we're from time-wise. I think we're good, right? Still on time. Good. Any further question? Otherwise, if a question comes up later, you can reach out to me. You will find me easily on the web or running around here. being on the other summit again in Amsterdam, being on some Eclipse events, and yeah, there's a lot of news going on there. So you will be updated, I guess, and somehow a lot of industry really jumps on. So the automotive industry has a lot of noise currently around the safe open vehicle core. And so one important thing, keep always in mind from the beginning, safe open vehicle core, because that's the official name of the project. So if you look for in the list of SDV projects on Eclipse side, then you just be there with safe open vehicle core. If you type in S core, you don't find the project. Well, we found it so super long that we just shortened it down. And there is no real proper saying it's either S core or score. Both names are used. If one tells you that the one or the other, it's not set. All right. Cool. Thank you so much.